All right, how I am excited. I am playing a little bit here for you from my brand new, hot off the press edition here of J.S. Bach's Goldberg Variations. I am going to play for you Variation 9 and 10. And as I explain in the preface, I have this table here. And I explain how Bach organized these variations according to tempo relationships and the resulting duration ratios. That's another issue entirely, which comes out of another book. But anyway, to make a long story short, this is sort of Bach's overall master plan. And it's fascinating because he organized the variations in a very highly symmetrical fashion, the way that he paired and grouped variations. So Bach's usual technique, not just with the Goldberg Variations, but with virtually all of his music, as I show here in this book here, which I recently published. In all of Bach's music, Bach sought relationships in the durations of time, and that had to do with a couple of factors. The time signature contributed to that, and the tempo contributed to that. And his usual sort of standard operating procedure was in all of his music, like let's say in a prelude and fugue, was he wanted either both pieces, the prelude and fugue, to last the same amount of time, or he wanted one of them to last 2 times longer than the other one. That's 1-to-2 ratio. Or the other option was a 2-to-3 ratio. And I show in Tempo and Duration in the Music of Bach, which I recently published, I actually prove, I don't just show, I actually prove it statistically. It's statistically proven in here, but I know this video isn't about that, it's about the Goldberg Variations. But anyway, once again, to make a long story short, Variations 9 and 10. I love these variations. They're relatively short. They're not terribly difficult. They're not like virtuoso variations. They're excellent to learn. Like if you're a piano student, say, all you really need to be to start approaching these is probably grade 4. So if you're grade 4, it's not too early to start working on these, some of the easier ones. So 9 and 10 are, I think, technically, they're not easy, but not easy by all means. But since they're not fast, that really makes them much less difficult than some of the faster variations where you really need a lot of dexterity. So let me just stop talking, and I want to play Variations 9 and 10. And I want you to notice how the quarter note of Variation 9 is going to equal the half note of Variation 10. I love these variations. Did you notice how the quarter note went right into the half note? So what you want to avoid when you play at least these variations, 9 and 10, avoid a really fast tempo in one and a slower tempo in the other. They really need to be equal. Bach really wanted these to be equal. He wanted them to be a pair. I sort of view them as okay, variation 9 is a canon. Okay, it's canon at the third. So we have a sort of a duet going on between the top two parts, see? So we have a duet in the top two parts, and then the left hand is basically just sticking to the harmonic progression that the Goldberg Variations adhere to. So it's sort of vocal in style. Very cantabile vocal, like you have your duet up there. When you get to variation 10 is like the trumpets come out. The trumpets, the full choir, all the brass. And it's very majestic, very majestic. I have determined, and I'll tell you this might be controversial, but I have determined that the tempo for both of these variations 9 and 10 should be 54 beats per minute. 54. Now, I did not come to this conclusion 20 years ago. It would have been different. I think that the tempo for these, according to my analyses, have slowed down over the years. But it's not because I'm getting older. It's because I've studied Bach's complete works now, as documented here in this book. I keep referring to this book because I need to. This is like the book of all books about tempo. So after writing this, I just figured out using a little bit of logic and reasoning. I reason, it's not easy. I thought that these were faster at the time, but now I think they're slower. I think they're more majestic. They're more of a sort of a majestic andante speed and not fast. So avoid or something like that. Try to avoid this too. Like kind of a staccato, and it really, I think, should be very vocal in style. So variation 10 is like, like I said, it's the full choir, the full brass, and it is a fugue. It is a fuguetta. Bach writes fuguetta. It's a small fugue. So it's a fugue. It's a little fugue for, I hear voices, and I hear instruments, and I hear everything. But in variation 9, all I hear is a little accompaniment with two solo singers. So like variation 9 would be like a solo number, like say in a cantata, for example. And then variation 10 would be the SATB choir, which comes after that. And that's very typical of what Bach would do in a cantata, see? So that's why you need to buy this book, because I do a massive study on Bach's cantatas in this book. And we really, in order to understand the way that Bach organized other works, such as the Goldberg Variations, you really have to understand the cantatas. Very important. If you're a pianist, it might sound boring. Oh, I don't want to study the cantatas, but you need to, because that will open your eyes up. So before I really seriously studied the cantatas, like 206 of them, before I really seriously did that earlier this year, I thought that these were a little faster, but then I started to see patterns that Bach sort of used in his music, patterns. So for example, one of the things that alerts us to the fact that variation 9 is most likely slower rather than faster is that variation 8 is fast, okay? So variation 8 is, it's like that. So variation 8 is one of the more livelier variations. It's like allegro. And so you just had variation 8, and the one before that, 7 is pretty lively too. So you have a pretty lively, actually 6 is moderately lively. So the 3 variations that you just played were moderately lively and very lively for variation 8, right? So Bach's usual procedure was not to just write more fast ones. He's already, variation 8 marks the end of a group of fast ones. So the most logical thing is to think, well, variation 9 must be slow, or some kind of slow. That's why it's absolutely incorrect to play variation 9 like, like that. That's just too fast for variation 9. After studying all the Bach's cantatas, really it needs to have, if this were a duet between a soprano and an alto, it would have, and maybe a continuo, it would sound. It's a nice speed like that. So I hope that you learned something from this video, and I'm inviting you to join the Well-Rounded Pianist with our special here, 25% off during this 14th anniversary sale that's going on. I'm really happy about this, and I will teach you the Goldberg Variations and more, much more. There's almost 3,000 videos on the Well-Rounded Pianists as I speak. And so we have lifetime memberships are 25% off for a limited time only. So thank you for listening to me ramble on and play the Goldberg, some of the Goldberg Variations. And I invite you to order this book hard copy here from subitomusic.com and or download the PDF edition of it. The PDF edition is exactly what you see here. Just has a slightly different, it has an odd volume number, but it's exactly what you see here, and you can print it too, so it's printable. So thanks once again, and I'll see you in the next video.